this is Angela Anderson with Thankful Art. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to paint this fun and easy whimsical floral artwork. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, please subscribe and share it with your friends. Stop by my channel to check out my other art tutorials for beginners afterward. Let's get started. The canvas panel that I'm using today is 12-inch square, and I've covered it with neutral gray. The paints we're using today are Liquitex Basics Acrylics, and I have the supplies listed in the description below, so you can check that out. As you can see here, I'm sketching out my design onto my canvas with regular school chalk. And I'm sorry you can't see it very well in this picture, but basically I wanted 3 large flowers, and then I filled in the extra space around with smaller flowers and leaves, and just used the vines to sort of fill in the gaps and create some movement. Don't have everything pointing all in the same direction. You can use mine as your example and kind of try to follow it along if you want to. But it's really fun. You don't have to know how to draw anything specific. It's very sort of childlike and easy. So the first flower that I'm painting here is teal blue. This is actually bright aqua green and ultramarine blue mixed together. And your first coat of paint probably won't cover all the way, so we're just going to kind of lay down some color and then come back to it and put in our details later. But you can use the, I'm using a 1/2 inch flat brush, but you can use whatever brush you're comfortable with. Mainly when I'm picking out brushes to use, I'm trying to find a brush that is large enough to cover the space without feeling too cramped. So you're just going to want a brush that's a little bit smaller than the area you're trying to fill. Now I'm mixing up a purple with ultramarine blue and quinacridone magenta, and I've added a little bit of titanium white to it to make it a little bit more opaque, because both ultramarine and quinacridone magenta are both sort of semi-transparent colors, so you need that little pop of white in there to make them cover a little bit better on your canvas. So I'm filling in a couple more of my flowers, and when I'm placing my colors, I'm just kind of trying to give it some balance, so not putting all of my purple in one area, and sort of trying to use each color at least 3 times on my canvas. Now I've mixed a little bit of white with the ultramarine blue, and I've filled in the center of my green flower, and I've added a few more leaves here with the blue also. So get creative with this, use whatever colors you want. These are kind of fun spring-like colors, but you could use a richer palette if you want to match your home decor. Now I'm mixing up some orange with cadmium yellow medium and the quinacridone magenta, and I've added unbleached titanium, which is kind of a creamy off-white color, to make a creamy orange. And I'm filling in another flower with this color. And I got this color palette actually off the internet. I was searching for modern color palettes, and so you might try doing that sometime if you are, stuck and you don't know what colors to use. For a painting, you can go online, and there's all kinds of cool color palettes that you can find, colors that you might not normally put together maybe. This was a Moroccan themed color palette, so I really liked the vibrancies of the colors. Now I mixed up some white with my quinacridone magenta again. I'm just going to say magenta from now on because that's hard to say. And I'm filling in some of my flowers with magenta. And here again, I'm kind of separating out where I'm placing that magenta, so they're kind of across the canvas and using up the space, sort of unifying it all. And because I'm mixing my colors also, this is a great way to make sure that your colors go together, is by mixing them. So all these colors will be really nicely blended. I got a little water on that little purple berry there, so I had to cover it up again. So now I'm just going back in with some more of my purple and giving it a second coat, making sure it's nicely covered. Then I'm grabbing some ultramarine blue and mixing up with the green, the aqua green, and some yellow to make a nice olive green color. And I'm going to fill in some of my leaves with this. My brush is so long that it makes my camera go out of focus sometimes when it goes right up underneath the camera. It's pretty funny. Okay, so now I'm mixing in some burnt umber. I did have black on my canvas there, but I ended up not using the black at all. So you don't need that color. The burnt umber will just kind of give it a little bit deeper color to your green. And now I'm mixing up, I'm switched to a angled brush because I can get a finer point on it, and I'm using it to do my lines. Now if you want to, you could do your stripes or your stems with a liner brush or number 2 round or something like that, if you're more comfortable using that for your stems. I like the flat edge of that angle brush. It just gets really nice fine points, but then if you press down a little harder on it, you get some thicker lines. So I've just filled in all of my leaf stems, and now I'm mixing up with some yellow and the bright aqua green and making this really vibrant lime green color. Isn't it cool how you can make so many neat colors just with what's on your palette? And like I said, these will all blend really well together because they're all kind of mixed from the same 5 colors or so. All right, now I am just going to fill in a few more of my blank spots and add a few more leaves in some of my empty areas there. Around my canvas, decided I wanted a couple more leaves in there. Okay, so now we've got our basic thing. You're going to want to dry it at this point. I didn't show that part, but I went ahead and dried it completely. And now I'm just wiping off all my chalk lines so that I can see where all of my design is without seeing the chalk lines. And then you can go back in with your gray later. I'll actually do that later and fill in. So now I am going to use my angle brush, and I'm picking up that orange. I had to mix some more orange because I didn't have enough left over. So it's the yellow Quinacridone and the titanium, unbleached titanium. And you're going to just do, you can actually do these one petal at a time if you want to. And then once your petal is wet, I did 3 here at a time, so you just do as much as you're comfortable with. But you want that orange to stay wet while you're working with it when you add your magenta back in. So you can see I've filled it in with the orange, and then I take my magenta while it's wet and I just put some stripes in from the center going out. I very lightly touch it into that wet paint, and it'll make these kind of blendy stripes in your flower. So you can play with this. You could also do this dry if you're not comfortable with the wet on wet. You could wait for the orange to dry and put in the magenta little details once it's dry. Okay, so now I've taken my orange and I've added a bunch of the unbleached titanium, almost straight unbleached titanium, with a little bit of orange still left in my brush, and I've just kind of made some details around my flower, around the outside edge. And now I'm going to put in my center of my flower. I'm putting in Quinacridone Magenta around the center of my flower there. And then I'm adding some of the bright aqua green, maybe mixed with a little white. I couldn't see. Yeah, I mixed it with a little bit of white to soften it up, and I just kind of lightly blended it in there. And now I'm adding some highlight colors to some of my leaves. So you can add or mix more back into that turquoise color and kind of blend them both together over the top of your leaf. You don't have to be especially careful with this. You can kind of let some of your blending strokes show if you want to. And here I'm sort of dry brushing those two darker leaves. My paint is sort of thick and dry, so I'm just very lightly brushing it over the top. And I'm mixing together a little bit brighter orange. You can't see what I'm doing here. Sorry, I'm so close together, but that was basically our leaf color that I mixed again, the ultramarine blue and the yellow and the bright aqua green. And just use various, I'm using the light color here to go back over my stripes of my, put some color over the top of my stems. Now I've picked up some of the burnt umber and I'm putting some shadow areas into that wet paint. And using that tip of your angle brush, you can get in just those little corners where you want that darker color to go. And I'm not covering over the whole leaf. I'm leaving a little bit of that original color showing in places, especially on the stems there. You want it to look kind of like a highlight. So just very lightly go over the top with sort of dry paint. I'm gonna play with this. It's kind of a fun technique. And this will be really good for your blending if you're not comfortable with blending. This is a really good exercise to use to get some blending in. And it's just small little areas, so you can paint over and start over. If you hate it, you can just kind of use it as a practice and paint over it and try again. No stress. So notice that I'm putting the brightest color along the outside edge first and then kind of lightly blending it towards the center. So here I'm mixing up some ultramarine blue and making a dark green color, the burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of the aqua green. And I'm not cleaning out my brush in between, so it's got all these colors on it. It makes it a little bit easier to blend. It's kind of, if you press down harder, you might get a different color. Okay, so now I've cleaned out my brush though, and I'm going back in with the bright aqua green straight, and I'm going back over that teal blue that we mixed with the ultramarine blue, and I'm putting in sort of highlights over the top and letting a little bit of that original turquoise show through. And just covering this flower, giving it a second coat of paint. And you can let some of the darker colors show through. If you want to leave some space between your petals, you can do that too. I sort of left a little bit of the space there. Now I'm mixing in a little bit more ultramarine blue, and I'm putting in, while this green paint is wet, I'm putting in some streaks, just like we did with the magenta over the top of the orange. I'm putting some streaks in to the green with this little bit darker color. Okay, then here's where I get my background color, this gray, neutral gray, and I'm just kind of going around some of the places where my chalk was, took the paint off, so I'm just covering those up. And you could actually use another color here if you wanted to. You could use, maybe add a little bit of white to the gray or something like that, and put some like highlights around your flowers if you want to get real creative. Just blend them into the background and you can make some really interesting effects. Okay, here I'm going back over with the aqua green and kind of softening up some of my color there, and I'm making a yellow with my number 4 round. I've mixed yellow with the unbleached titanium, and I'm putting stripes in my flower. If you start at the outside and sort of set your brush down and then start lift as you go towards the center, you can get a finer line as it goes toward the center of the flower. And use this color in other places too. Remember, we want to use each color at least 3 times. So since this is a brand new color, I'm going to use this yellow in several other places. And I liked it so much I decided to use it on this pink flower too. Yellow is a great color to unify, especially on flowers. Really makes your painting come to life. It's really beautiful. Okay, so now I'm adding a little bit of white. And this has still got a little bit of that yellow in my brush, so it's not straight white, but it's pretty close. I wanted it pretty vibrant. So I'm using it to just adding it a couple different places. Here again, we want to use it in several places so it's not kind of all by itself. Now I'm mixing up some light orange, and I'm adding some light orange around in my canvas here. I decided to brighten up that purple one and the center of my purple flower. Now I'm mixing up some ultramarine blue and white and making a highlight color for my blue flowers. I decided to go ahead and put some in over the top of my pink flower there too. I liked it so well. Now I've got some purple, and mainly this is an ultramarine blue with white. It's got a little bit of purple in it. And I'm making some highlights on my berries, and now I'm adding ultramarine blue in that purple color and making a shadow color. And I'm going to use it to go around my purple flower, outline it, and I've switched over to my number 2 round brush. Now I'm using some of that blue with the purple mixed together and the white to do some highlights on my purple flower. I decided to soften up some of that outline color. I didn't like it being so dark. Okay, so now I'm working from the inside and going out toward the outside petals, just adding a few little stripes. And I decided here to switch over to my number 4 because it was that little round brush was a little bit too thin. Yeah, there we go. So I switched to my number 4 so I could get some good thick stripes in on top of my purple flower. And then you can go back in with your original purple and soften it up if it got too dark in some areas or too bright or whatever. And just touch it up while that paint's wet. Okay, now I've mixed up some light pink with my magenta and white, and I'm outlining my pink flowers with my number 4 round. But you can switch to the number 2 if you want. And I'm using this color also to do around the center of my purple flower. There. And we're about done. I decided there that I wanted to add a little bit more orange. Oh, and I decided also, yeah, to outline my green flower with this. This is that light blue, ultramarine blue and white color. And do it around a couple of my leaves too. I felt like needed a little bit. And just have fun with it. I added some darker blue dots there because I felt like I need a little bit more of that color. I'm adding some darker blue to one side of my leaf there. And here's where I pick up a little bit more orange, and I decided to put it on some of the leaves. It's kind of a shadow color. It really makes that orange sort of pop. And that's it. Hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching today. If you've enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and also share it with your friends on social media and Pinterest. That really helps me out a lot. Until next time, I hope you have a great day and be thankful. Bye-bye.